Won't you join us as we dive deep into the rabbit hole in search of what's really lurking behind the veil of this world, as we discuss topics like cryptids, conspiracies, the paranormal, and more. This is Redacted Memories.
Welcome back to Redacted Memories, where we are looking at Skinwalkers and the Wendigo on this installment. We are going to start off with the Skinwalkers, which is a Navajo culture, and there's really not much on this. It's very taboo in their culture to talk about the Skinwalker.
And keep in mind what we talk about within this subject. It could be absolutely correct, or we could possibly even be completely wrong on some things, and that's due to the fact that, it's not very talked about with outsiders and all that. It's pretty taboo even to the Navajo and other Native Americans. But I suppose we start with the background on the Skinwalkers, which is the Navajo language. I believe how it's pronounced is Nalushi, which translates into by means to it goes on all fours. While perhaps the most common variety seen in horror fiction by the Navajo people, the Nalushi is one of several varieties of the Skinwalker in the Navajo culture. The legend of the Skinwalker is not well understood outside the Navajo culture, mostly due to reluctance to discuss the subject with outsiders. Traditional Navajo people are reluctant to reveal Skinwalker lore to non-Navajos or discuss it at all among those that they do not trust, which usually entails to the native people now being barraged with questions about these beliefs and traditions. And to quote Adrian J. Keene, which states, "But these are not things that need or should be discussed by outsiders at all. I'm sorry if that seems unfair, but that is how our culture survives," which Adrian J. Keene is a Native American academic, writer, activist member of the Cherokee Nation, and a founder of the Native Appropriations.
In the Navajo culture, Skinwalker is a type of harmful witch, and it's important to note there that they are referred to as witches, who has the ability to turn into, possess, or even disguise themselves as any type of animal, which why their term, the Nalushi, literally means, by means of it goes on all fours, is for their animal reference there. And it is also a term that is never used for healers in the Navajo culture.
Yeah, the Navajo witches, including the Skinwalkers, represent antithesis culture values, while community healers in the cultural workers are known as medicine men and women, or by the positive, nurturing terms in the local indigenous language. Witches are seen as evil, of course. I think that goes for any type of lore for any type of witches. Witches are usually looked at as the evil versions of their counterparts, which apparently, performing twisted ceremonies and manipulating magic in a perversion of the good works medicine people traditionally perform in order to practice their good works. Traditional healers learn about both good and evil magic. Most can handle a responsibility, but some people can become corrupt and choose to become these said, witches.
Yeah, so basically what's going on is in the Navajo culture, if you're referred to as a medicine man or woman, then you're typically viewed as a good being, and if they refer to you as a witch, it's basically like in their culture you are being shunned by them, like they don't want anything to do with you.
Apparently, like, these being all the Skinwalker lore and all that stuff like that, apparently, like I said, could be wrong. This is literally, the research that we looked at is literally what we could find. So, them not really being out in the open about any of this to outsiders, it's kind of hard to be like, this is true, this isn't true, and so on and so forth. But apparently, it's one of the reasons why they are. It's rather taboo for them to wear the pelts of predatory animals. And that's why they usually stick with the other creatures that they usually don the pelts, such as sheep and all that stuff, which is why they usually stick to buckskin leather and all that kind of stuff like that too, wearing that kind of.
So like even in other cultures, the Pueblo, Apache, and Hopi each have their own unique interpretation of what a skinwalker might be. The myth behind the shape-shifting being known as the skinwalker has mostly been consigned the label of either a hoax or being the native culture label of too much peyote, or simply just oral traditions transfixed to their cultural beliefs. The Navajo skinwalker, no less, has deep roots in Aboriginal American folklore. Other tribes throughout the region have their own version of it.
Some of the part of the other legends that we were able to muster up upon researching this subject is animals associated with witchcraft usually include tricksters such as the coyote. However, it may include other creatures, usually those associated with death or bad omens. They might also possess living animals or people and walk around in their bodies. Skinwalkers may be male or female.
I don't like the coyotes and the foxes. Like those are typically known even in just any culture, not just the native culture. That they're known to be tricksters. They're known to take things, hide things. They're kind of like crows. They see something they like that's shiny, they're gonna take it. So it's interesting that they use that.
I find it interesting though that it's not just coyotes, wolves, and all that stuff like that skinwalkers are supposedly able to take the form of.
Yeah, you figure with them being typically that's what they be turning in, but there's plenty of accounts of where, well, the one I've seen of what you see is the knot deer being a type of skinwalker, and I really watched a video not too long ago where they showed a video of a knot deer where, yeah, it looks like a deer if you catch it at a glance, but after you look at it and study it, being here in Arkansas, you see quite a few deer, and I have yet to see one with a 2-foot long neck, like just that straight nothing but neck.
Are you talking about that video where it sounds like someone's on like a 4-wheeler or something like that, and they're like, it's a deer, and the deer is standing kind of, I'd probably say like 15, 20 feet in front of them and all that, but the neck of this deer.
Yeah, it's kind of
like
it's almost like a highline way has been cleared out, and he's standing in the middle of this open area. Yeah, same video.
And it's like it has that long, elongated neck, and yeah, I seen that too. When I first seen it, I was like, what the hell is that? I was like, that's not a deer. There's also that one video that I just recently seen, I think probably like a week ago, and it was supposedly taken on in Arkansas freaking trail cam, and it's this deer. It looks like a normal deer standing kind of like from the side. You get the side profile of it, the rear side profile, and then it turns around, and its front legs, instead of being just like straight with its body, the freaking legs are they're like bowed outwards, where it literally looks like it has shoulders and all that stuff. And I mean, I don't know how to describe it. It was.
I see what you're saying. It's basically like they look. It
was eerie
upper part of its front legs.
Think of a bulldog.
They come down, and then right about the joints, they really have like a giant ball on them. And I'm not 100% sure if there's not, because I'm not up to like the local wildlife diseases, if that's not some sort of disease, but it was definitely
I've never seen it before. Usually, animals.
Yeah, being a pretty avid hunter,
yeah.
I haven't seen anything like that.
I mean, you'd imagine there's a reason you don't see too often, like deer and all that kind of stuff like that with like ailments like that, because I mean they just don't survive naturally in the wild like that. But the video of this deer, this was an old looking deer, like.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I've seen it. Like, yeah, it's on an old trail cam, black and white. Like it's pretty cool.
The only thing I could describe it was it literally picture a deer version, but like its stance was like a bulldog, where its front legs were like bucked out to the sides and all that stuff. It was definitely strange.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely.
It's also good to note that in these two videos that we're talking about, the first one we were discussing, that one was out in the trail by itself. Now, on the second video, this trail cam, there actually looked to be, it was around other normal looking deer. Like, so this one was amongst these other deer and was obviously corrupted in some way, I would say, like whether it be with an element or if it was truly a skinwalker of types.
But I guess some of the other forms that skinwalkers are capable of taking are like coyotes, wolves, foxes, cougars, dogs, bears. But then again, you know, they can take the shape of any animal that they want. And apparently also that if they adorn antlers and stuff like that, that it increases their powers. And skinwalkers, researching this, like I learned I knew a thing or two about skinwalkers, like from just constant random stuff throughout the years that I heard about. But actually sitting down and researching this, I mean, learned some stuff that I honestly didn't know. I mean, there's plenty of stuff that I don't know, no one else knows, because I'm not Navajo and I don't know full details of it. But research-wise, that I learned that was new to me was that apparently when the skinwalker's in animal form, how people are able to differentiate it from the animal and a skinwalker is when they're in skinwalker form, they'll keep human. Their eyes will be still human.
Really?
Yeah, their eyes will still be human, and when they're not in skinwalker form, I guess in humanish form or whatever, their eyes will be animal-like.
That's interesting. So it's like their eyes will swap between wherever they're at. That's actually really interesting. I didn't even get that in my research. Which, with this all being said, like I said, these native tribes don't like to talk about it. It's bad voodoo. It's bad omens for them to even talk about this stuff. So that's why there's very little on it. And whatever research we could find, it was hard to find stuff on them.
It says like the reason they don't talk about it is due to the fear of retribution from said skinwalkers. Which, I mean, personally, I mean, I find a lot of belief. I can believe a lot of stuff that, you know, of Native American lore, because I mean, their tribes and all that have been around in this land for
well before we were.
Yeah,
I mean,
way before we were.
They were walking these lands before we even knew that the Earth was round. Apparently, so I mean,
and they're more in tune with nature and everything around them and all that stuff like that. May that be freaking physical to spiritual and all that stuff. You know, I mean, a lot of their traditions involved having to go out and, you know, go on these spiritual quests and all that stuff and get in tune with everything.
Go ahead, Colin.
Well, I mean, it goes back to. I mean, once again, it goes back to, you know, you talk about it enough and you conjure it up, and they don't want to conjure something up.
True, and with that being said, ever since we've started doing this, I had some weird things happen. You know, the power of persuasion, I guess, is what you were saying. Is just the other night, sitting here doing this research on it, talking about the skinwalkers. Had this knock on my basement door. Opened the door, nothing there. It's like, okay. Closed it. A little bit later, had a knock on the side wall. Went outside, looked around, didn't see anything. So I mean, I'm not saying it's true, but there is definitely a certain power there. You know, you talk about it and it manifests.
Here's a crazy thing that how you say that. This is actually part of the research that I found out too. Is those who have talked of their encounters or of said entities, these evil beings describe a number of ways to know if a skinwalker is near. They make sounds around homes, such as knocking on windows, banging on walls, and scraping noises on the roof. On some occasions, they have been spied peering through windows more often. They appear in front of vehicles in the hoping of causing a serious accident.
That's great. Like, I don't have any of that in my research. You literally just gave me fucking goosebumps with that, man.
Like, that's why when you were saying that, that's why I was scrolling through. I was like, hold on, I know I have something about that I've written down.
That's great. Like I said, I didn't even get that, but yeah, that literally just gave me goosebumps. That's freaky.
I mean, there could be a complete reason, like Colin said, and like you said, there's a reason why they don't talk about these things. Like, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to all of a sudden you talk about it, and next thing you know, you're gonna look out your window and see, some guy walking down the street stop, look at you, and you guys make eye contact, and all of a sudden he just transforms into a dog and runs off.
Right, like that's not going to happen.
No, I
wouldn't assume anyway.
I believe it starts on that like spiritual level, like the atmosphere.
Basically, like the knocking and stuff being a warning, like, hey,
yeah,
you need to stop talking about this, or
shut your
something's gonna
mouth.
happen.
Yeah. It starts on that type of level, and if you keep conjuring it and all that stuff like that, it's just like, okay, I mean, you want some, I'll give it to you then. I mean,
with this being said, if there are any native listeners that have any information that are willing to talk about it, and I know that's reaching because, like I said, it's very taboo. But if y'all are willing to talk about it, I would love for y'all to reach out and talk to us about it, because I'd like to expand on this more, because we really don't have that much on it.
I was telling my wife last night that I know this stuff's taboo and all that stuff like that, but I would just love, and I understand there's things that are taboo that cultures don't talk about because, it's just bad juju, but I'd love to learn more about these kind of things just for the knowledge aspect. I mean,
yeah, even for that matter, whether it be this or anything else, just reach out to us, because, like, I don't care what it is. I love information. Like, I love
learning about like different cultures and what they believe in and why they believe it and so on and so forth.
Something I didn't do with this, and I really wish I would have, is I should have went, and I bet that Australia has some pretty interesting stuff. I wonder if they have anything like this, or even any of any other continents. I wonder if they have anything that's like this.
True.
Because this
does
seem to be mainly Navajo, and I didn't see anything, but I also didn't dig because it was all Navajo.
See, I believe I got something.
It seems like I would assume that Australia and Africa probably have their own version of it, because it seems like it has to do more with shamans and healers and stuff like that.
Yeah, because Australia, they got a bunch of aborigines and all that stuff, and I've watched a few things that talk about them. Those aborigines, those they're pretty wild. They're pretty out there in Australia. Like how we're talking about the culture and all that stuff like that. That according to these skinwalkers is the Navajo are a part of a larger culture area that is also includes the Pueblo people, Apache, Hopi, and the Ute, and the other groups that also have their own versions of the Skinwalker, but each include a freaking malevolent witch capable of transforming itself into an animal. So I mean, I believe that's basically saying, the Navajos, it's like the Skinwalker, and like this tribe of people, they may call it something different, you know what I mean?
Right. Whereas I believe, like you said, the Nalushi is the Navajo term for it. I didn't see any of the other terms for the other tribes. So I'd like to know what they are. And I want to go into a little bit on the basically the background of them, how they originally came to be, and I've got to where the point where I see some of these beasts are tied to creation myths. They're stating that skinwalkers were once helpers of the divine beings. In the Navajo stories, they were agents for the holy people when they first came and were training humans in the way of the blessing, which I'm assuming is kind of like the creation of in Christian religion being like the creation of man is what they're basically talking about in the way of the blessing. So they were supposed to depart from our world once the training was done. Many didn't. Many did, but a few remained. Their desire to stay in the mortal plane corrupted the power the holy people gave the Nalushi and transformed them into malicious, semi-divine beings. And this is where the tribes differ. Some believe they are a type of fallen angel, while the others believe they are mortal with a gift for black magic.
And then one of the lores I found on how they come about and all that stuff. Now, keep in mind, we aren't sure if this information is even valid or if it's true for the culture history behind the lore. Is like we discussed already, is very protected and not really spoken to outsiders. But one of them that I found myself researching all that stuff like that is some of the lore on how one becomes a skinwalker. He or she must be initiated by the so-called secret society. That just makes it sound all Illuminati and crap like
Right.
that. And that requires like the evilest of deeds, which, you know, killing close family member, which most often is a sibling. And after the task has been completed, the individual then acquires supernatural powers, which gives them the ability to shapeshift into animals. And apparently also, legend has it that the skinwalkers are also able to take possession of human bodies and human victims if a person locks eyes with them. And after taking control, the witch can then make its victim do and say things that they wouldn't otherwise.
So they take control of them as like they do a full-on possession, or is it more of like a mind control kind of possession?
I want to say it's probably more along the lines of like a mind control.
See, that's what it sounds like to
that
me.
whole how it said the whole locking of eyes.
Yeah, and the eyes, especially the eyes being the gateway to the soul, that would make a lot more sense. Where it's actually more of a mind possession or a soul possession
Which I mean,
itself.
which makes sense because it also says that when skinwalkers are in, I guess you would call it their animal forms or whatever, that they don't have how people are able to tell them apart from the standard normal animal is when in animal form they don't take on and have animal eyes. And instead of when light hits their eyes or whatever, instead of, you know, normal animals' eyes at nighttime, they're gonna glow like, you know, that whitish or yellowish.
Yeah, they're on that gleam on there.
Yeah, but apparently when light hits them, their eyes are human eyes, but they glow red. But yet when they're in when skinwalkers are in human form, they actually have animal eyes.
And see, I want to expand on that with the videos that we were talking about earlier. The first one being the knot deer with a really long neck, and the next one, the next video with the bowed out legs, is that the reason for that is they're not natural. Like, that's not their natural form. So they have these disfigurements on them that, yeah, it's close enough that you can see and call that's what it is, but it's also not exactly right. So that's a little bit on that.
And I thought it was interesting, also, in the manner of, within this research, how it is said how you kill a skinwalker, which they state is notoriously hard to kill, and attempts are usually unsuccessful. Trying to kill one will often result in the witch seeking revenge. Successful killings generally requires the assistance of a powerful shaman who knows spells and rituals that can turn the skinwalker's evil back upon itself. Another alternative is to shoot said creature with bullets that have been dipped in white ash. However, the shot must be in the witch's neck or the head. I thought that was pretty interesting. I was like, well, how about that?
And I wonder if that's more in the lines of when they're in their animalistic form, if it's actually harder to kill them in that form because they are using magic or black magic to turn into that, or if they're easier or harder to kill in their natural form, in their human form.
That's a good question, and this will actually probably set it up perfect to discuss one of the most infamous places that these creatures are said to roam, which is Skinwalker Ranch. I actually started watching that documentary last night. I think I got about 2 episodes in before I just passed out from being tired. But one of the things they talked about was apparently one of the stories on the original owner of the ranch, the Terry Sherman, I believe.
The
Sherman family. Apparently, I believe it happened during the daytime. He had this pen set up, and he heard his sheep going crazy. And he goes out to this pen, and next thing you know, he sees this large wolf-like creature reaching in.
And when we say large wolf-like creature, like I have here, I don't know if you have it, but it's 3 times the size of a wolf. So we're talking like...
Picture a dire wolf,
yeah,
basically.
That's what I was about to say. Like, dire wolf, just massive. Almost, I assume like a wolf the size of a bear from the way it sounds.
And this thing was reaching in from the story, reached in and grabbed one of these sheep by the head. That's when Sherman, I suppose, from what the story says, went and got his 357. And
so you got a 357 on yours? See,
he started out with the 357.
Oh, it started with, okay, see, I didn't get
357, walked up, basically borderline point blank, unloaded into this thing, and this thing didn't flinch.
Mm-hmm. See, I got where he shot it 3 times with his rifle at close range.
That's when he came back. After that didn't work, he literally went back to his house, grabbed his 30-06, and this creature had... only thing I can describe it is the balls to just literally sit there and wait for him. Stood there, kept doing its thing. And that's when he came up in point blank range, fired off the 30-06 a couple of times, and that was enough, I guess, to make this thing go like, oh, okay, that one tickles.
From what I was saying, like the report says that it was basically like taking pebbles and throwing it at it, like it had that little effect on it. But yeah, there's been there's also reported of on this Skinwalker Ranch, which is a little over 500 acres in Ballard, Utah, which that's, if you're not mistaken, it's within that region, Utah, Colorado. No, what was those regions that you had on there? I know Utah.
Oh, the part of the Four Corners.
Yeah, the Four Corners.
It's southwest Colorado, southeast Utah, northeast Arizona, and the northwest of New Mexico.
Okay, so I was right. It was Utah. Okay, in those areas, there's cattle mutilations, crop circles, and there's been UFO sightings on this ranch. It's a very big paranormal hotspot, and these sightings apparently occur once a week on this ranch. So
apparently, also it. I'm going based off of the show I started watching and all that stuff like that. Apparently, activity picks up more usually when new people visit this ranch.
Oh, really?
They won't dig in the ranch either.
Like no excavation at all?
They won't do it because I guess the last person they told, hey, don't unearth, don't disturb the soil or nothing. This person was all like, nah, there's nothing wrong with that. And he started digging, and I guess he randomly started developing a goose egg on the back of his head.
Is this the Sherman guy, or is this someone else?
These are the new people that have it now.
Oh, okay.
This guy is, I forgot what he is there, because they have now, like...
He's the caretaker.
Yeah, the caretaker. And the fatty tissue from his scalp dissolved and detached from his skull.
Oh, wow.
And the doctors literally said they had no idea how.
And this is in that documentary?
Yeah.
I've really got to watch it.
Because they got awesome. A whole team. They literally have a freaking head of security. I remember that guy's nickname. His nickname is Dragon. Because it made me laugh because I just, for some reason, pictured Step Brothers and all that stuff like that. And, I thought it was crazy because now they got security personnel with guns and all kinds of crap. Like,
which, that's something else to know. This ranch has been sold off that I know of 3 times. I don't know if you got any more.
Yeah, I believe it was...
Because Terry originally bought it.
Yeah, Sherman originally had it. Another crazy thing about that said ranch is, like, he originally decided to sell it when he ended up having... It's going to sound far-fetched to me because when I first heard it, I was like, you're kidding, right? But apparently he
I was expecting to get into that.
He
That's
had aliens started attacking this home and all that stuff, and apparently he ended up defending and ended up killing one with a sword of some type.
That's a little different because I didn't get that. I was going to go on to something else. I wanted to backtrack to Sherman because I have a little statement from him. Well, let's lead into that. He said one of his cattle was found with a hole cut into the center of its left eyeball. So I'm assuming the black part of the eye or just the center of the cow's eyeball was
probably
gone.
the iris.
He said another had its rectum cut out. Then one day, 7 cows disappeared. And his statement says that If it's snow, it's hard for a 12 to 1400 pound animal to just walk off without leaving tracks to stop and walk backward completely and never missing their tracks. So basically, what's happening is he's tracked his cattle up to this point, and then the tracks just disappeared. They just stopped. So take that for what you will.
Little small brief history of it too is like, in the 90s, the ranch is located in northeast Utah, far away from the Navajo reservation. It became the partial focus, the Skinwalkers, which is also, it was originally known as the Sherman Ranch, which is now more known as the Skinwalker Ranch or the IFO Ranch. This place has a history of UFOs, aliens, cattle mutilation, crop circles, located near the Indian reservation.
Which you were telling me before we started recording, there's an Indian reservation that's not too far,
Yeah,
and they don't even deal with this ranch at all.
I don't know how far it is. I think it's like 30-something miles east of the Skinwalker Ridge on the ranch, and they don't even acknowledge the ranch being
they're
there.
just like, yep, that's no man's land. That's the woods.
But apparently, this whole area is cursed with skinwalkers and all that stuff like that because the Navajo put a curse on the tribe as retribution for perceived transgressions, which I also learned thanks to this documentary what the reason for that transgression is, because before, when I just typed all this up due to research, I was like, well, what's the transgression that they did that was that bad where they're all like, hey, we're going to curse this fucking place.
Right.
And that's why I was like, man, I can't wait to actually finish the series, or that series and all that stuff about it, even after this, because I guess the transgression was when the U.S., the United States military, was going to go through and clean out all the Navajos and make them, I'm sorry, but I can't remember the name of, it's like the walk of something that the Navajos basically did and all that stuff like that. This tribe, when they heard that the U.S. military was going to do that, they were like, hey, we're going to help you. And they ended up helping them. They ended up making some slaves out of the Navajo. So that's why the Navajo were like, all right, we're cursing you guys now. Which, when I learned that, I was like, well, didn't know that. I was like, that's pretty interesting.
I've got a question. Did all that happen, I'm assuming, back in the Old West time? Is
Yep.
where you come from?
Yep.
Okay, because everything I'm coming up with the Sherman Ranch, so you see, that just puts a more point on it. Sherman did not buy this ranch until 96.
Yep.
And he sold it the same year to a Las Vegas realtor named Robert Bigelow. And I didn't really get much on Bigelow, except for he did establish the National Institute for Discovery Science and set up surveillance on the property. And he says things just got weirder, so he then sold the property to, I believe, who owns it now, which is the Adamantium Company.
Yep, they're also a tech company, which is crazy because the previous owner, before the ones that own it now, from what they say now, is the previous owners have classified information and
This being the Bigelow gentleman?
and other information that they have not released and have no plans to release, and all that stuff like that.
That's pretty cool. I would.
So I'm
I would
pretty
like
sure
to
it's
find
about.
this guy and
So
like
it's pretty
see
sure
if
it's
he would
about
even
because
share any of it.
what's crazy is that the last two people, these guys are millionaires and all that stuff, and the first thing they do as soon as they buy it, they're like, we are researching the living hell out of this place and all that stuff like that. Like, I mean, that's pretty crazy, especially when
500 acres.
Yeah.
In Utah, like. Who goes and buys that much land, spends that much money, and then turns around and wants to sell it the same year? Like, obviously, there's something going on.
Yeah, that's
here.
what I'm saying. Like, I'm wondering what what the owner found prior to this, the newest owner, and all that stuff like that. Especially stuff that he won't release. That's like classified and all that stuff like that.
Now, I know Bigelow had it set up, like you say, National Institute for Discovery Science. I know he had it set up where you were allowed to go there. Had actually like you're allowed to go there and basically walk the ranch and everything. These new people, I'm not 100% sure they allow it. I don't think they do
so
at all.
because these, like I said, these new people have security. They got at the front gate. They have a guard shack and everything there, and they have security personnel that don't go anywhere on the ranch without their weapons.
And
These
when we say they have security set up, it's not more than just people. I mean, from what I'm saying, they have motion sensors. They have motion sensor cameras. They have infrared cameras. Like they have this. They have these document. It's like Area 51 trying to get in there.
They have these. The only thing I can describe them as what look like to me are hunting shack stands and all that stuff like that. And those little. They have like multiple different cameras like set up on them, pointing in all kinds of directions, like throughout the whole entire.
Basically, like fire watchtowers.
Yep.
Like
except nowhere near as tall. Literally about the size as one would be if you were in it to hunt.
Okay, so 20, 30 feet off the ground.
If that.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Which is crazy because I guess people like to also try to sneak on the property and they catch them pretty quick. Which I don't know if with the new owner, because this is 100% one of the places I would love to go visit. Like,
oh, most definitely.
So I don't know if like they allow you to go and like stay the night there because
I'd like allow you to go unless you have permission from them.
No, that's what I'm saying. Like I don't know if they'll give
I wonder how hard it is to get the permission to go.
Get the permission. I don't know if they'll actually give you the permission or not because I'd love just to stay at least like 1 to 2 nights there.
Yeah. If anyone has any information on how to contact them, I mean, I'm sure I could look it up and get through Google or something like that and find it. But if anyone has anything on it, I'd like to hear what y'all have. If y'all even been back there, because like I said, this was only since '96 that these establishments were set up. So if any people have been there, and I'd like to hear their stories on what they have or have not seen. Like,
some of the encounters with these two and all that stuff like that, some people have seen angry-looking humanoid figures that be looking down on them from the cliffs and mountains and mesas. Probably slaughtered that little easy word. English is hard. And then some say they've seen them running through the night. Sometimes animals running along. This part right here. This is the one I'm used to hearing the most when people say they encountered them. Is they have animals running alongside their vehicles that are matching the speed of the vehicle, and then shortly after they'd run off into the wilderness along the way, or these animals would sometimes turn into a man who would end up banging on the hood of the car and all that other kind of stuff before scurrying and running off in the other direction.
Well, that's interesting because the fastest human in the world, Usain Bolt, was he run 30-something miles an hour in a dead sprint, and he can only do that for so long before he can't do that. I know from hunting deer, yes, deer are faster than humans, but you can still keep up with them to a certain extent. That's a lot to do to the way that they run. So if they're keeping up with a vehicle, that I would assume if they're running from this thing 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, how many animals can do that? A cheetah?
Hearing that little story reminds me of that story that, like, well, it's not even really a story. It's just, something a lot of people share as a kid and all that stuff like that. You can be in the back of the seat with your parents as they're driving and all that stuff like that, and you look out the window, and it's like that little story about this, like, weird humanoid guy that would be, like, running at the same speed of the car and all that stuff, like, looking at you in the car and all that stuff like that, hopping over freaking fence posts, telephone poles, and all that stuff, just running along with your car and all that stuff like that. I forgot the freaking name that they nicknamed this freaking creature, person, or whatever the hell. But
I'm the deuce from day on. I personally haven't heard anything.
Yeah,
it's
pretty crazy.
Like that, but that sounds awesome.
It's pretty crazy. Like, I think someone even made a animated little thing about it and all that stuff like that. Just sitting there playing their Game Boy and all that stuff, and they look out the window and this thing's just like running, hopping over stuff, just running at the pace of the car and all that stuff like that. I was like, it's crazy. Let's see. Let me double check and make sure that we didn't leave something out on this one.
I was gonna say, as for me, that's pretty much all I have on it. It's very, very little info on it.
Skinwalker stories told among Navajo children. Oh yeah. Skinwalker stories may be told among Navajo children may be complete life and death struggles that end in either the Skinwalker or Navajo killing the other, or partial encounter stories that end in a stalemate. Encounter stories may be composed as Navajo victory stories with skinwalkers approaching I'll probably if I pronounce this wrong, then I mean I'm sorry, but
Apologies.
Is the either the Hogan or Hugin, which is the primary traditional dwelling for Navajos, and it being scared away. The non-native interpretation of the Skinwalker story typically takes the form of partial encounter stories on the road where the protagonist is temporarily unable to escape from the Skinwalker in a way that is traditionally seen in Navajo stories. Sometimes Navajo children take European folk stories and substitute Skinwalkers for generic killers like the Hook, which
that's good.
Yeah,
earlier, some we were talking about
yeah.
if they were their cultures. Well, obviously, at least the Europeans have some sort of it for the Navajo to take it and transform it into theirs.
Which I'm pretty sure I once heard the urban legend for the Hook, which is the urban legend about the killer with the pirate-like hook hand that attacks a couple in a parked car.
Oh yeah.
So I think
typical
that's
here. Yeah.
I think that's how Navajo children. That's how they're able to talk about it. Is they're not technically talking about the Skinwalker. They're substituting the Skinwalker for more European urban legend entities and creatures. So therefore, they can get away with talking about it
without talking
about it.
I like that. That's. Okay. Do you have anything else on this, Colin?
I don't think so. I mean, it's just one of those things you won't know about for sure unless you experience it. I mean,
especially, that right there is.
I'm, I gotta believe that they're out there. I mean, from the, it being passed down for generations of generations, and
yep.
I mean, I'm not one to say that they're wrong on it.
Most definitely. I mean, who are we? We're not scholars by any means. We're just individuals that like the cryptid. We like the paranormal, and we're just giving you our take on it. Which
I personally agree because, like I said, I mean, the story's been around for generations and generations before I was born, before we were even in this country. And all that stuff like that. I mean, they're more in tune with nature.
We know our history to a certain extent pretty well. What we don't know, and we learned from a lot of the cave paintings and things like that, are the stories of things like this on those. And how many of those stories do the native people still have that, like this right here specifically, they don't tell? How many other stories out there are like that?
I mean, throughout history, there's history of shapeshifters from all over the world. And they could all be a former skinwalker or just different regions calling something different.
Right. And then that's a great transition to our next thing. The Wendigo is our next topic here, which is I think a more... What's the word I'm looking for?
How?
Cement version of a skinwalker. They actually named it its own self. Because there are key different characteristics between them. But
yeah, because the Wendigo, it started out as a human being, and then it basically transformed itself into what the Wendigo is. Which, let me pull my information up on this juicy topic.
While you're doing that, just say I got how they came to be. Is Wendigos possess and hunt down loved ones and feed upon their flesh. They are created when a human resorts to cannibalism to survive. Typically, when native settlers and settlers themselves were stranded in the snow of the North Woods. Some versions say that humans who display extreme forms of greed, gluttony, and such are more likely to be possessed by the Wendigo.
See, I'm going to end up slaughtering yet another Native American freaking name.
What's up?
And like I said, if I pronounce these wrong, I apologize. But the story of the Wendigo comes from the, like I said, don't know how to pronounce this, the
Algonquin.
Algonquin?
Yeah, the only reason I know that is I have a cousin that used to live on Algonquin here, and that's how you pronounce it, Algonquin.
There we go, then. Perfect. Algonquin Native American folklore and the exact details vary depending on who you ask. Some people who have claimed to encounter the beast say it's a relative to Bigfoot, but other reports compare the Wendigo to a werewolf instead.
And it's not just them. I mean, it's the I have the Algonquin Ojibwe, the Eastern Cree, the one I'm not sure how to pronounce, the Saltu, I believe is how you pronounce that, the West Main Swampy Cree, the Naskapi, and the Innu. All those 6 different tribes all have the lore of a Wendigo.
Yeah, it turns out the source of the English word of the Wendigo is the see another Indian word I'm going to slaughter. I apologize again. Is the Ojibwa?
Ojibwe, yeah.
Ojibwe?
Ojibwe.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, I actually had to look that one up.
I was,
That was the one I was really, really worried about. I guess I should have looked up the other one too. But yeah, that's the Ojibwe.
yeah, the Ojibwe word Wendigo, which is spelled Wiindigoo, and the Cree language is.
I want to take a little note there. The 2 I specifically referred to multiple Wendigos. I found that out.
Huh.
Yeah.
And the Cree language is it's Wendigo, but it's completely spelled different. It's Wihtikow. Also translated Witigo, which is Wetiko, and then other translations include. Well, I'm not gonna say and spell them all, but it's probably another like 10, 11 more.
Yeah, there's quite a bit
variations of the spelling.
And whereas with the Skinwalker was more towards the Four Corners area, these are, I've found, was the Northwoods of Minnesota, the forests of the Great Lakes region, and the central regions of Canada is mainly where these come from. So,
yeah. In some of the descriptions, the Wendigo is a part of the traditional belief system of a number of Algonquin-speaking peoples, including the, I swear to God, how to pronounce these, I'll have them in my head, and then all of a sudden they vanish, like, and as soon as I look at these words, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to slaughter this.
the whole thing of public speaking, being put on the spot, your brain goes blank.
Oh, no, I can be at home, and I'm still like, I don't even know how to begin to pronounce this, because my brain is like, I want to try to pronounce it, but I don't want to disrespect and, like,
Right.
mess it up, but, I mean, it is what it is. Is the, what was it? How was it pronounced?
The Ojibwe.
Ojibwe. The Ojibwe, oh my God, what is this one? The,
Oh, that's the one I said was the Saltu. I wasn't sure about that one either.
Yeah,
That's the one I
see,
said I should have looked at.
the,
The Saltu is what I pronounced it as, and I apologize if I misspoke on that.
Saltex, or I don't know. It's spelled Saulteaux. So I'm not gonna slaughter that more than I already have. The Cree, the what's this? The Naskapi.
Yeah, that's Naskapi.
And the Innu. Like I said, I apologize for slaughtering those because I know I slaughtered 99% of them. Although descriptions can vary somewhat, common to all these cultures is the view that the Wendigo is a malevolent, cannibalistic, supernatural being. They were strongly associated with winter, the north, coldness, famine, and starvation.
Allegedly, these things are very tall, and we're talking like mythological giant height, 15 feet plus. Although not all cultures share that belief, that whenever a Wendigo possesses another person or devours another person, it would grow in proportion to the meal it had just consumed, so it'd never be full. It creates more Wendigos by possession. It has a lipless mouth and jagged teeth, typically a skull of a deer or horse with antlers, glowing eyes, long yellow fangs. They have jagged claws and dramatically long tongues. They typically either have yellowish skin or matted fur. Basically, what I could say is it looks like a rotting carcass walking. Yeah, is what I pretty much seem to have came up with it.
Basically, yeah, that was enough. I was literally looking at the description of it. That Basil H. Basil H. Johnston, an Ojibwe teacher and scholar from Ontario, gives a description of the Wendigo. The Wendigo was gaunt, to the point of emaciation.
There you go. 'Cause I was looking at that word. I was like,
Yeah, its desiccated skin pulled tightly over its bones, with its bones pushing out against its skin. Its complexion, the ash gray of death, and its eyes pushed deep into their sockets. The Wendigo looked like a gaunt skeleton, recently from the grave. What lips it had were tattered and bloodied, unclean and suffering from separations of the flesh. The Wendigo gave off a strange and eerie odor and decay and decomposition of death and corruption.
so yeah, it definitely seems like whatever these things were, they are. Whenever they do come to be, or whenever you do see them, there you will have probably the smell of decay. They'll probably reek. They're just not nice looking beings. Like,
Originates from the folklore of the First Nations based around the East Coast forests of Canada, the Great Plains region of the United States, and and the Great Lakes region of the United States and Canada. Grouped in modern mythology as speakers of Algonquin family languages, the Wendigo is often said to be a malevolent spirit, sometimes depicted as a creature with human-like characteristics which possesses human beings. The Wendigo is known to involve feelings of insatiable greed, hunger, the desire to cannibalize other humans, as well as the propensity to commit murder in those that fall under its influence.
yeah, which a lot of that is called the Wendigo psychosis.
Yep.
Which I will go into that a little bit more here in just a minute. I just want to point out that they do have a lot of the same aspects as far as like the Skinwalker with its supernatural abilities. They actually have some of the same. They are known to do possession. They have the thing of stealth through the weather control of dark magic. And if they cannot feed their voracious appetite, they will die from starvation. So they have to keep eating to survive, which is part of the greed and gluttony part of their lore.
Which, unlike other terrifying carnivores, the Wendigo doesn't rely on pursuing its prey either, in order to capture and eat it. Rather, one of its creepiest traits is its ability to mimic human voices. It uses this skill to lure people in and draw them away from civilization. Once they're isolated in the desolate depths of the wilderness, it then attacks them in the forest to feast on them.
Man, this is some crazy stuff here.
So basically, you could be just walking about in the woods and all that stuff like that, and you hear someone yelling help or something like that. You think someone's in trouble, and next thing you know, you're in over your damn head, and you got this absolutely terrifying freaking creature.
Oh yeah,
That's
I've
about to
watched a
make
lot
you
of
a meal.
videos on that where basically if you're in this region where these things come, if you hear cries for help, if you think someone's calling your name at night, they're telling you don't go looking for it. It's more than likely this Wendigo that's trying to lure you in to either take you over or use you as its next meal. Like, so if you're in this region, be careful.
I'm curious if, because it says Canada, Great Plains region, the United States, and all that stuff like that. I wonder if Alaska, because Alaska seems like it'd be pretty on point. Well, I mean, I guess it would technically have to be, seeing how Alaska's right there, connected to Canada and all that stuff like that.
I'm sure it would be. With you asking that, I mean, that's going to lead into our next. Because with these, we're also looking at doing state local legends, which will be something that we're putting out. We're just going to go through them alphabetically, which we will be doing one. I believe our first one's on Alabama, which we'll be doing that soon. So I believe after Alabama will be Alaska. So maybe we'll learn that they have them in there.
So I guess we'll find out if Wendigos actually are a thing over in the Alaskan area also.
Yeah, hopefully. I mean, that'd be kind of cool.
I believe you said you were wanting to touch up on the Wendigo psychosis.
Yeah. We'll go with Wendigo psychosis is considered by some psychiatrists to be a syndrome that creates an intense craving for human flesh and a fear of becoming a cannibal. Typically happening in the winter months of the north when the snow is persistent for long periods of time. If a human is said to become a Wendigo, they will have symptoms of poor appetite, nausea, and cannibalistic tendencies.
I wonder if the Dahmer party kind of, if they played into that too.
Really, I wouldn't know. Where was that even? Was that up in that region?
I believe, if I remember correctly, what the Dahmer party was. You know, it was that plane crash and all, or some kind of crash or whatever. Where
Ooh, I think I should go ahead.
Where they, I guess, reportedly ended up freaking, you know, at some point, resorting to freaking eating the dead and all that stuff like that.
I don't have that in my. I do have some of the more popular cases. I do have a couple over here on that.
I'm gonna look up and see if the Dahmer party, where it took place in that region.
Yeah. While we are on that case, I have many recorded cases of Wendigo psychosis. The individual has been killed to prevent cannibalism from resulting, and I'm not saying that they have already turned into a Wendigo. Wendigo psychosis being by many of the psychiatrists believing that it is just a state of mind. One of the more famous cases of Wendigo psychosis reported involving a Cree trapper named Swift Runner during the winter of 1878. Swift Runner butchered and ate his wife and 5 children. Because this individual was only 25 miles from a food ration site, it is believed that this act was not due to pure cannibalism, but he had succumbed to Wendigo psychosis. He eventually confessed and was executed by authorities at Fort Saskatchewan. Another well-known case was that of Jack Fiddler, an Oji Cree chief and medicine man known for his powers at defeating Wendigos. In some cases, this also resulted in him killing people with him killing people. In 1907, Fiddler and his brother Joseph were arrested by the Canadian authorities for homicide. Jack committed suicide, and Joseph was tried and convicted to life in prison. So, were they actually just using this as a means of mass murder, as basically a killing spree, or were there's actually some lore to this, where these guys thought that they were actually killing true Wendigos, or people that were trying to become that were possessed by Wendigos and were in the process of turning into them?
Yeah, apparently the Donner Party happened within the Sierra Nevadas.
Okay, so that's a little bit out of the range of this.
Well, I was talking about, I wonder if they were after they, you know, did what they did and all that stuff like that. If then of course, you know, around that time, I don't think the Wendigo psychosis theory and all that stuff like that was a thing. But that's what I was meaning. Like, I wonder if, you know, they were worried about, like, oh man, I want to be craving human flesh, and I want to become a cannibal and all that stuff like that. Ended up being like, oh, I don't want to like doing this or anything like that.
Gotcha.
There was another instance that I'm trying to remember what the incident was called, but it was a group of freaking people that were they were camping and all that stuff like that, and next thing you know, they just freaking vanished, like, and their tents and everything like that were freaking tore up and all that stuff. One person was found, I think it was either up a tree or a pole, frozen in the snow and all that stuff like that, and they were like absolutely running from something, like something.
Yeah, it was like fearing.
Something
so you're
had
gonna climb
them.
a tree, you're gonna
Something
get away
had
from
them.
it. You can. So the question is, what was it that was so persistent? They were up there long enough to freeze to death. Like
That's what it's called. The Dotlev Pass or whatever incident.
I haven't looked into that.
I mean, it wasn't within the U.S., but still, like, I mean, that's another, like, absolute mystery, because something was chasing them, because their tent was tore the hell up. These people left their freaking tents and camps without their clothes and everything. They just hauled ass.
So basically, wherever they had, minus their animals, if they had a horse, I'm sure they jumped on their horseback and rode. But
No, they had
their equipment. They left their equipment.
Yeah, this was
tents,
basically
their food,
like more modernish day, like not like modern as in like right now, but it was like it was pretty modernish time and all that stuff.
around
like
the 1900s or what?
Probably a little
late,
bit. About that time, if not a little bit sooner. Let me look again. I believe it was No, yeah. About 19 late 58.
58. Okay. Yeah. See, what I have here is
About 1900s.
yeah. Everything I have is for either the latest account I have is 1907 and some prior.
Well, no, this one was. This is the Dauntless Pass, that incident I was talking about, where they just like something attacked them and they ran out in the blistering cold and in Russia and all that stuff like that.
Oh, that's over there in Russia.
Yeah,
Okay.
without their clothes and everything, and their tents were tore the hell up and everything like that.
Well, eventually we have to expand our local legends into start getting national legends, start expanding over there. And who knows? I mean, when we start getting into more cryptid side of things and looking at other nations, that might come up in that too.
It might be another type of like story that's like the Wendigo and all that stuff like that, because from what it seems like is the Wendigo is just basically, you know, eating human flesh and then your body transforming into this entity creature and all that stuff like that. So I mean, who's to say that other countries don't have the same freaking creature, just something called something different?
Right, and I like that. I like seeing things from other countries, from other points of view, because it brings in this whole thing. Like, yeah, we have the Bigfoot here. I've heard of stories over and around China where they have something similar, and how many of these other places actually have all these similar creatures? And if they all have similar stories being literally thousands, if not tens of thousands miles apart, and they still have similar stories, were these things at least not at one point real? Even if they're not now, were they at one point to basically warrant these people into having these stories?
Yeah. What created these stories? Like, something had to create the stories. Like, you ain't gonna just sit there and randomly one day be like, you know, it'd be real cool. What's that? We say there's just a creature that's just tall as hell, scrawny as hell, and it just likes to eat. That'll really teach people. Like, I mean, there's gotta be something that like brings forth these stories that is some form of truth. It's like the Kraken and all that stuff like that.
It's funny, 'cause I actually just watched something yesterday on the Kraken.
There's got to be some form of truth to that. I mean,
yeah, where originally they thought it was some mythological being, being the Kraken, and now they're thinking that it could have been a giant squid, which we all know now that the giant squid is real, and that there's potentially a population of millions that are been undiscovered in our oceans, because we only discovered like 10% of them.
Yeah, if that.
But getting back to our Wendigos, I do have a report here from 1661 called the Jesuit Relations, and it documents this. What caused us greater concern was the news that met us upon entering the lake, namely that the men deputed by our conductor for the purpose of summoning the nations to the North Sea and assigning the rendezvous where they were to await our coming, had met their death the previous winter in a very strange manner. Those poor men were seized with an ailment unknown to us, but not very unusual among the people we were seeking. Basically saying, like, we're not used to this, but the guys that we're going to meet up with, they have some lore behind this. He said, that it goes on to state, they are afflicted with neither lunacy, hypochondria, nor frenzy, but have a combination of all these species of diseases, which affects their imaginations and causes them a more than canine hunger. This makes them so ravenous for human flesh that they pounce upon women, children, even upon men like veritable werewolves, and devour them voraciously, without being able to appease or glut their appetite, ever seeking fresh prey, and more greedily the more they eat. This ailment attacked our deputies, and as death is the sole remedy among those simple people for checking such acts of murder, they were slain in order to stay the course of their madness. So basically this report from 1661 says, hey, we were supposed to meet up with these guys. By the time we met up with them, they had died, and this ailment had passed on, and they moved in, and they had to kill the others for fear of what they were becoming, because they just were so unused to it. Which, I mean, this is from 1661, and who's to say that it wasn't some sort of psychosis thing? It wasn't some psychological thing, because we all know that within 400 years, medicine has changed quite a bit.
What if it could have
Well,
been
I
a
mean,
form?
it honestly sounds like to me that, you know, once you start eating human meat for survival, it changes your, you know, mindset, and just sounds like it makes you crave it more. And so it sounds like most of those encounters are, you know, psychosis of they have to have it now.
It's also said if you eat too much human flesh, you'll develop brain prions. So I wonder if-
Which is what I'm saying. Like, now, we know that now, but back in these days, back in like 1661, back in the 1600s, they didn't know. I wouldn't assume that they'd known that. They didn't have really the tools to discover that. So what they see is that these men have, like you said, ate these people. That we know that they developed this lust for eating it because that it eats away at their brain. And what are the basic human instincts? Well, that we know how to fight. For lack of a better word, we fight, fuck, and live. I mean, eat. That's all we know how to do as basic humans. So if it's eating away at their brain, that we're going to resort to our basic instincts, and that's what it is. So eat. We know how to survive. That's all it is.
That'd be a wild combination to contract rabies and that hunger.
Right, and that's pretty much what it sounds like. It is. It's out there. Let's see here. Wendigo psychosis among the Western ethnographers, psychologists, and anthropologists led to a debated controversy in the 1980s, over the credibility of this phenomenon. Some argued that essentially this psychosis was a fabrication of the mind due to some naive anthropologists taking the accounts at face value with no further research of the cases. So basically what we were saying, if they seen this, they heard about the Wendigos, and that's what it is. Others have said that these cases are not of the mind, with eyewitness accounts both by the Algonquins and others as evidence that Wendigo psychosis was a factual historical event. Cases have since dropped in the 20th century as the Algonquin people became influenced by European ideologies and more sedentary lifestyles. So it sounds like basically the more the European people have came over and influenced these, they have lost their true lore behind it. And in fact, there's even I don't know if you have this, but there's a ceremony. You see anything on that?
Sounds about something us colonists would do.
Yeah, there's something called the taboo reinforcement ceremony, and what that is it says among a few tribes a satirical, and that's important to note, there is satire. Satirical ceremonial dance is sometimes performed during times of famine to reinforce the seriousness of the Wendigo. The ceremony, known as, and I will butcher this because it's the Wendigo Kazamoan. Yeah, I believe that's how you pronounce it. The Wendigo Kazamoan, it's one giant word, was performed during times of famine and involved wearing masks and dancing backward around a drum. The last known Wendigo ceremony conducted in the United States was at Lake Wendigo of Star Island of Cass Lake in northern Minnesota. Wow, that was a mouthful. So it sounds like there's a lake, Cass Lake in northern Minnesota. There's an island on it where it has a lake inside the island, which, man, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, right?
That must be a big lake.
I find it interesting that they named the lake
after it,
after
Lake
the
Wendigo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting myself.
Apparently, I didn't know that they had a ceremony ceremony for Wendigos also, because apparently some tribes also have a Skinwalker ceremony too.
Interesting.
I got a picture on my computer at home of one of them dressed up like it. That's just pretty fucking creepy looking. Like,
oh, I can't wait to see that when we get all this put together. I'd love.
Colin,
to see
you watched that Skinwalker show, didn't you?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, it's basically the first episode. It's a pretty creepy picture.
I'm really gonna watch
Yeah,
this
I
one.
mean, it's,
Go ahead.
I mean, they dressed up what they believe they've seen, and I mean, it definitely strikes fear into you.
Oh, absolutely.
That's for sure. I mean,
Absolutely.
I didn't want to stare at the picture any longer than I had to.
I'm glad it faded out relatively quick. I was like, nope.
I really got to watch this. It sounds really interesting.
Yeah, what, Skinwalker Ranch?
The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch.
Okay, hopefully I can find that on YouTube.
That's basically about all I got for the Wendigo. I mean, it's another one of those where it's like there's stuff out there, but it's not a whole lot of stuff because
I do like
natives
the one
tend to
is,
keep their stuff.
Oh yeah, that's very very secure. I do like this one because it does have a little bit more hard evidence cases to it, with Swift Runner and the Jack Fiddler, with those being on there, you know, and these were, and even the Jesuit, what was it? The Jesuit reportings actually being in a newspaper at the time. I find that some pretty interesting evidence towards it.
Wasn't there a story about people hiking up a mountain and all that stuff like that? And one guy was tired, so the rest of the group took lead with the rope and all that stuff like that. And next thing you know, they stopped and waited for this guy to come up the mountain, and he never showed up. And they went back down, and his feet stopped right there, and then he was gone. And they ended up finding his backpack in a cave or something shit like that.
Yeah, I heard something about that, and it wasn't even anywhere near it. Like this, like I can't recall the account, you know, verbatim. But if I'm not mistaken, this his equipment was found like 5 miles from where he was, something like that.
Yeah, in a cave.
It was way off.
And there was no footprints, and it was snowing then too. I mean, and it wasn't snowing fast enough for it to cover everything.
Yeah, I mean, we all seen snow. Like you walk through the snow, if it's a light snow, it's gonna take, you know, a couple hours for where you were walking for those tracks to be covered completely, where you wouldn't look like that. But
I can't remember the location in which that took place, but I mean,
I want to say it was in the Minnesota region. I could be wrong, but I mean, I want to say that's what that region.
There was snow and all that, so it had to be within the northernest region. So I mean, it's got to be within the range of where these things are said to be anyway. So I heard that and I was like, that's pretty crazy. I was like, how do you just vanish all of a sudden? No footprints, nothing. And then your stuff ends up just sitting in a cave. Which, that'll tie into something else and all that stuff when we discuss the topic of the national parks and the cave systems.
Oh, no, I can't wait for that. Huh?
That's going to be a big rabbit hole for that one. A big rabbit hole where you guys are going to hear us and you're going to be like, these guys are fucking crazy.
Which that's why we're here, man. We want y'all to. I want to see y'all's differing opinions on this. Like, I don't want y'all just to say we're crazy. I want y'all to explain why you think so. But as always, make sure to give us a like, a follow. Find us at Redacted Memories on Facebook. And you can reach out to us there. We're always answering questions.
We have a Twitter also. We also have a TikTok. We also have a Patreon. I think that's it for now.
Do we have any of those links through Facebook? I mean, that's what the majority of people have. If not, we need to get those on there.
I guess we'll go ahead and we'll go ahead and post and add those onto the Facebook page. I can't remember if they're on there or not.
I'm not 100% sure. But
I'm pretty. If they're not, I mean, it'll be like a quick 2-minute thing to do all that. Because we got a Twitter, a Facebook, a TikTok, a Patreon, and YouTube.
Yeah. So make sure to hit those up, see what we're doing, and comment, and we will get back to you. We have, I think, 5 people so we're always having different views on this.
Appreciate you guys taking the time out of the day to give us a listen and listen to us do our normal rambling. Appreciate you guys very much.
Restoring memory. Redacted files uploaded. Memory restored. Terminating transmission.